This is episode 49 of The Living Reminders with Mary and Blake. From Cranston, Rhode Island and California, welcome to The Living Reminders and The Guilty Remnant. They're podcasts dedicated to the leftovers in HBO. We're still here, and so are you. So let's start with the final MegaCast.
It's the darkness of the dawn, and your friends are gone, and your friends won't come. So show me where you fit. So show me where you fit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so glad to be back together. I'm your host, Mary Larson.
My name's Blake.
I'm getting emotional over here, and I'm Dylan Shuck.
And I'm Gina Murtalo.
And welcome to the final MegaCast. Can you believe
Quit saying the word final. It's making me emotional.
I know. I'm sorry. I don't
crying already, and I don't want to cry yet.
I don't like the sound of it already, but it is what it is. My darling, how do you feel about this?
I'm so glad that we are all still here. I'm so glad that nobody's departed, that we're all still talking about one of the best shows to ever grace television ever. There is so much to talk about. And yes, this is the final MegaCast at the end of a season. But let's be real. This show is going to keep people conversing for years and years and years to come. So I am so excited to be doing this with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost hard. It was hard to, the day after watching the finale, to discuss it and to get all of your thoughts out and just be done with it, because this really felt like a finale that needs to sit with you for a very long time.
Right. I remember when I said this on the last episode that we did. I remember when we finished the episode, the finale, Mary and I, walked upstairs into our bedroom. Kids had been long asleep, and we were like zombies. We didn't even converse, really. Yeah. We just walked upstairs, sat in bed, and we're like, okay, it's time to go to bed, because it was too much emotional overload. And as much as I felt and how much the other finales made me feel, this one, despite how small it was extraordinary. It was all full of character motivation and character finality, and you finally felt like, okay, I know what we're doing here with these characters, and it's a complete story. Did you guys get the same sense?
That we got a completed story with this completely?
Yeah.
Is it? No, but I don't really want a completed story necessarily.
And I think as characters, that's a good distinction. As characters, I do feel like it was more complete. Like, we understood who these people are and were and where they're going. And that's different than, do we feel like the story itself was totally wrapped up?
Right. And
I kind of agree with Dylan. Maybe it didn't feel like that, but I like how you specified that the characters felt like we really know who these people are, and some questions were answered about those people.
Right, I totally agree that it's a good distinction, and making sure that the characters are fulfilled. And I think Lindelof and Perrotta, that was their aim, and I think they nailed it. And we got
a little epilogue at the very end too that kind of catches up with all the characters, including Kevin Garvey Sr., Matt. Obviously, Kevin Garvey Sr. 91. The age of Frasier, who
some exposition there,
right?
That it just kind of made its way into the conversation.
Yeah,
but it was nice.
So I appreciate that we got a little epilogue on it that not a lot of shows afford us.
So before we get into the what we're going to be doing here for this particular episode, you guys, what your general thoughts on season 3? And I know your listeners have listened to you all season long, so they're probably already well aware of what you're about to say. But your thoughts for season 3 as it began and then as it ended.
I guess Gina, you take this one first. By the way, we have Gina filling in right here for Tiffany, who's normally on The Guilty Remnant, but Gina's been on a bunch of episodes. Tiffany has an extremely swamped schedule right now with a new job, so Gina, luckily we were able to get Gina to fill in, and Tiffany.
I've got a lot of time on my hands, apparently.
Well, Gina, thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Oh, you're welcome. Happy to be here.
Tiffany sends her love to all the listeners and thanks them for for all that. So
And we
anyway,
miss her too.
that being said, Gina, you tackle this one first because
All right.
as easy as this question is, Blake.
Yeah, wow. Well, I enjoyed this season overall, but I did find at parts, and that's just, to me, I feel like kind of the surrogate, normal, everyday TV watcher of a show. I may not be as evolved to, understand that they're not going to answer all the questions. I do find myself going, but where's this? What's happening? Are they going to answer that? And I did try to help myself not do that and not be hung up on it. But I feel like even people who are okay with not getting all the answers at parts of the season were kind of wondering, when is this going to wrap up? Where is this going? I feel like they're asking more questions than they're answering. But then I think towards the end, I just decided to let it go and enjoy it and focus on the characters.
And let the mystery be.
Let the mystery be. And once I did that, I definitely enjoyed it more. And I think that was their aim to begin with. So I needed to do some kind of evolving in that and just accept that. And just acting alone, some of my favorite scenes and dialogues were in this season. And so it certainly didn't lose momentum in that way. And that's really probably what I enjoy most about the show. So I was happy with it. I enjoyed it.
So I think that I absolutely love this, and I feel like this season is going to be something I need to continue to sit with. So it's, again, even over a week later, it's
even
still
the
tough
series you have to sit with. The whole
Right.
series you could sit
Right.
with and rewatch and analyze. It's just that kind of show.
I have no issues with not answering questions, because anything that I felt I needed answered got answered. I love the ambiguity of Nora's story at the end. There's just as much evidence to show that is true, that there is to the contrary. So I'm okay with all that. My thing is, it followed up the second season. I think the second season was one of the best seasons in television history. I don't think the third season lived up to the second season, and I think a lot of that has to do with, in my opinion, it didn't have a narrative objective as much as the first two seasons had. The objective for most of the season was, a lot of it was Kevin Garvey Sr. trying to dance that we knew was not going to save the world. Like, we never once were thinking that was going to save the world. The only really riveting objective that was happening was Nora getting to that machine that Mark Lynn Baker had introduced her to. But in the second season, we had Kevin trying to get rid of Patty, and we had the guilty remnant looming over everything. I do feel like this season missed out from that dread of the plans, the heist, or whatever the situation may be with the guilty remnant. Speaking of the guilty remnant, shout out to the Guilty Remnant podcast at guiltyremnantpodcast.com.
Shameless plug.
I did feel that that those predictions of what the guilty remnant could be planning, I felt like that was missed a little bit with the season, and that kind of looming threat. Because I never Kevin Garvey Sr.'s situation with this, with only 5 episodes left, that was disappointing to me, and I was hoping that in the scheme of things that episode would not have been, but it was in the end. And
did that pay off? Did it pay off to spend an entire episode on that? I don't think it did.
Yeah.
I think if you really liked Kevin Sr., then the episode paid off. Like, if you really wanted to know what he was up to, and like why he was in Australia, what he was doing there. I mean, it's a valid question.
He's the anti-Matt for me, in a lot of ways. The exact opposite of that. But what about you guys? What did you guys think overarching about the season? I don't want to come off like I'm being negative on it. I guess I'm just comparing it to.
Well,
you're
coming before me, so you're going to sound negative because I am an eternal optimist.
Where would we? I didn't expect the sound effects. I was not expecting sound effects. Let me ask everybody this. Let me frame this. Rank the seasons. Let's rank the seasons.
I was just thinking about that, actually.
I'm going to go first. 2, 1, 3.
I think we know.
2, 1, 3. That's my ranking for the season.
Gina, how about you?
Ooh, I think, and it's hard because 3 is fresher. Definitely 2 is the first one. I agree that was a great season in all of television. Ugh.
That's not, and by the way, I just want to say, I'm not putting 3 at the bottom. I just am putting the other 2 above it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go 2, 1, 3 as well.
Wow. Okay. Mary, my
Oh my God, you guys ready?
Yes.
Are you ready for me to
You're
mix
gonna
things
say
up?
3 at first.
What? 3, 1, 2.
Whoa.
Boom. want to know why?
Very of opinions on this.
Wow.
On this episode.
You brought the heat on that take.
I didn't
what
like,
do you got?
I did not like Evie. I did not like John. I could live without them.
Wow. Okay.
Bye.
Ooh.
See you later, guys.
What about Patty being the infestation on Kevin, though?
Patty was pretty badass in season 1, guys. She was pretty
I know.
badass. Yes. Okay, so
Yeah,
yes,
but
the whole
Ghost Patty was
infestation.
pretty good.
Ghost Patty was freaking crazy. I agree. And if I just didn't really I had more fun in season 1 than I did in season 2 in Miracle. In Kevin's
fun on this show.
What'd you say?
If you're looking for fun on this show, I get why why some would be better than others.
So I guess okay, so since we have to let the mystery be, it was hardest for me in season 2, believe it or not, to let the mystery be, because I'm like, what is going on? Why is he in all these places? By season 3, I just kind of coasted because it was just such a crazy world that I got used to it by that point. 2 was hard for me to grasp. I just really, there were so many different things, so many different people. First season, I loved getting to know these people, getting to know this world, trying to figure out who I would be. Like so much of season 2, I saw myself as a member of the Guilty Remnant. And I've said that many times, that if this happened to me, I'm really kind of nervous that I would have joined a cult, because I would have been like, how could we forget? How could we forget, guys?
Here's the question: would you be in the lion sex cult? That's what we're talking about.
I would sign me up.
Yeah.
No.
Reminds me of my semester at sea. No, I'm
That's a
kidding.
good answer to say. That's a good. That's a good answer to say to your husband. By the way, Mary, is no, you would not be in the
I know.
lion orgy sex cult.
I
That's a
do
good
appreciate
answer.
that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sing it. Come on, sing it.
Okay, Blake, how about you?
For me, I'm going to cop out on this one so hard and say seasons 2 and 3 are equal for me. And then it's followed up by season 1.
I would have pegged you for a 3. You're such a sappy romantic.
Well, let me finish. Let
Free
me
in San
finish.
Diego.
The reason why I'm saying they're on the same level is because I felt that season 2 was a more, as Dylan said, a more complete story for a through line, and there were certain objectives. They got to the objectives. They had the mystery of the girls. They had Kevin and Patty, and like it was all very interesting. It was not something that you had really seen done on television quite yet. And not necessarily the girls joining the GR, but like, you know, Patty and how that all went down, and how the chemistry between Ann Dowd and Justin Theroux, it was off the charts, almost as good as Carrie Coon and Justin Theroux.
Let me say this too. We're all from Lost backgrounds, obviously. We all got into this because we were all massive Lost fans.
Right.
So in season 2, probably had the biggest what the fuck moment in the entire show is when Kevin, International Assassin World, and then Virgil drained the fluid that would bring him back to life and then shot himself in the head.
Right.
Yep.
No moment of the entire series lived up to that, like, oh my God, moment of the show. And and I remember also that was like the 6th episode, right? I think that was the 6th episode of 10.
No,
and I was like,
I think that was episode 8.
No, I think it was 7.
Oh,
International
seven.
Assassin was 8.
Yes. Okay.
And then I'm like, this, how, when you feel like you're leading up to the finale and when you have, 3 episodes left, and I felt like we weren't leading up to the ending of this show until halfway through the finale.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I just felt like so much was building up at the in the 7th episode, and I was just it was such a page turner.
Right.
So I guess for me, I'm always looking for page turner. I'm always looking for TV that's a page turner. So the 3rd season failed on that front. It wasn't as much of a page turner, but every single second that you're watching it, you're watching everybody at the top of their game. You're watching cinematography at the top of their game. You're watching music and music selection and score at the top of their game, acting at the top of their game, directing at the top of the game, writing at the top of their game. So I felt like what I'm watching is good, but it wasn't like I can't wait to see the next thing that happens because I just was going along with the ride.
I think all of those things,
to jumping ahead.
I think all of those things were true for season 3 in terms of everybody being really at the pinnacle of what television has to offer. The writers, the direction, the DP work, All of it. It was, I think, the top of what television has to offer.
Yep.
Where and going back to season 2, just the bonkers nature of International Assassin. Again, something that you
that
really
was a totally new concept. I've never heard of the afterlife, any relation to what that was.
right. I mean, it was crazy.
So that was
talk.
a whole new thing.
And I remember watching that, being like, I remember watching and then sitting on the couch with Mary, being like, either that episode was like the greatest episode of television I've ever watched, or was the shittiest episode of television I've
Just
ever
total
watched.
insanity.
And either way, you could make a case for either way, because there are people out there that just, they don't, and I'm saying this, it's going to sound really arrogant, but like there are people that don't operate on that level for television. Meaning they want to turn their brain off and they want to watch Gilmore Girls or they want to watch CSI. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a place for that. I have a Gilmore Girls
We've
podcast,
just lost
bro.
all the female viewers.
I know. I have a Gilmore Girls podcast, and I absolutely adore watching Lorelai and Rory and all of them. But when
Please
you
keep
get
listing
to
characters from that show.
when you get to engage International Assassin the way that you did, and the way that you had to invest yourself in it and really take from it and learn from it, and engage with it emotionally as well, that was really special. However, where season 3 really picks up for me is the emotional catharsis for each character, whether it's Lori in Certified, or it's G'day Melbourne watching Nora with the rain, with the sprinklers on her face, and
Yes.
you know, or Kevin reading the unfinished love story. Like, oh my God, I cried more in season 3, way more than I did in season 2. As such, I grade them kind of equally, because they
Kind of for different reasons.
yeah, I had a more emotional impact season 3, but I felt a more compelling story being told in season 2. So
I would have to agree with that. That's a great point.
I also have to say that the pushing Patty down the well, the young Patty down the well, and the Homeward Bound song,
right.
those hit me harder, and they were more powerful scenes for me than the reading of the romance novel and We Fucked Up with Nora.
Yeah, and I
was
think
way more
that's,
emotionally carried by those two than I was with this.
and I will admit that I think for the general population, I think that you're very right, Dylan. The reason why
That was a backhanded compliment. That was a backhand.
no, what I meant was the reason why I was
For us common folk.
you plebes.
Yeah. Sheep.
The reason why
Please,
I was
I like
impacted by the unfinished love stories, because I have gone through a lot of depression, and seeing Kevin grapple with the same exact thing that I grappled with, the pushing your loved one away from you because you feel like that, you know, you don't deserve them and that you're an idiot. And all that is 100% true for me. So I felt more emotionally impacted by that.
Got it.
But for you plebes, I get season 2. It's way more emotionally impactful.
I also, I'll have to say, and I feel like I'm talking too much, but Carrie, I like the Nora that was trying to lie to herself that things were okay. That was also just a more captivating Nora for me than the just broken, Nora that we get for most of season 3. I think that Mark Lynn Baker and her interaction was awesome, and then the final scene was amazing, but a lot of the in between of that was hard for me. Like her, I don't know, aggressively going after them and smoking in the hotel and all that kind of stuff was not as enjoyable of a Carrie Coon for me, or a Nora for me,
right?
If that makes sense.
Well, talking about enjoyable, let's dive into our top 5 favorite things ever from The Leftovers.
So normally we've done things a little bit differently. We've only taken listener feedback for the MegaCast, but we felt like it was important to really go over the entire series, and not just for season 3, but really get into the impact of the entire series for all of us and what was outstanding. But also the one thing I think that we would all change if we could go back in time and go to Damon Lindelof and say, "Hey, bro, change this one thing," and he'd be like, "Get away, boy," I'll do what
Get
I
away,
damn well
pleb.
please. Yeah. We're gonna keep that joke running all episode long. Okay, just so we know.
We planned it ahead of time.
So, all right, why don't we start with you guys, number 5. What was your number 5 favorite thing from The Leftovers, the series?
All right, so we obviously got together and we made our list together. So I guess I'm not doing these in order. I think these are all.
Yeah, we
even.
didn't rank them.
We didn't rank them.
Okay,
I'm
so
just gonna give
no
them
particular order. Okay.
in no particular order. Carrie Coon's dialogue scenes. Just the sequence, just several different scenes of her and another person. Starting off in the episode Guest, the scene with her and the author in the bar where she says, "You're not in pain," and she called him a fraud. The scene with her and Holy Wayne, also in Guest. In Lens with Erica and her, and then her and Kevin at the end of that episode when Kevin told her about Patty and that he's sitting right next to her. And the scene with her and Marklyn Baker was arguably one of the most captivating scenes for me in the third season. And then obviously the final scene of her telling the story to Kevin. I don't know if the show would be the same without Carrie Coon for me.
It would not.
No.
In any way, shape, or
She's
form.
incredible.
So, yeah. What do you guys think about Carrie Coon's dialogue scenes?
Well, I would say that the show is not the same without Carrie Coon. Clearly, 100%.
Yeah, it would not be.
In fact, I would say that the casting in general, except for like the 2 ping pong boys in season 1, the casting in general,
It's hard to find twins.
yeah,
Carver twins.
was like top notch, man. Everybody inhabited their role, even like Gladys. You know, Gladys sat there
she was
and
great.
took those rocks to her
Mom hair.
face with mom hair, and
But if we
bloodied.
had to say take away one person from the show, and it would harm the show the most, it has to be Carrie Coon.
Agreed.
Oh.
Like without question.
I don't know.
Not that I'm not a fan of Justin Theroux, because he would be the second place on this list. But if you had to take away one person from this, how could it not be Carrie Coon?
I don't know. I was
Like
actually going to
person.
argue Ann Dowd, because
that's a good argument.
She is good.
because I
But
feel
she
like
was not
you
in the
could,
third season at all, except for us,
Right,
one
but-
of the episodes.
but what she did and what she meant, the context of her appearance is in season 3, is so powerful to what they're actually trying to accomplish in that particular episode. Instead of Kevin helping her to move past Neil, now she's helping him move past whatever he needs to move past to get back to his own life. Going from the bad guy to instantly turning into the good guy. Like, how crazy is that, right? So
Yep, she's definitely a top 3.
she is top 3. And Justin Theroux, like I feel like Theroux did an amazing job, but I feel like I could get Matthew Fox to do his role if I really wanted to.
I don't disagree. He did do amazing, and I was not that high on him in the first season, if you guys remember, but second, third season, I was completely proven wrong. Egg on my face.
Yes, you were. Just
What about
take
you?
that.
Same question to you, Mary. Who do you think if they were taken away, it would affect the show the most?
Oh my God. I don't
The Carver
even
twins?
know. Definitely. Yeah. Right.
No, call them by their real name, the Ping Pong Boys. Let's get that right.
Ping pong twist.
Okay, so I feel like I can't say Carrie because she's already been chosen. I'm just trying to think who else I was just such a believer of. Because she's so amazing. So
Yeah, you could just agree with us.
Yes.
You can agree with us.
The only other person,
And then we win.
I felt, yes, Carrie. There you go.
Yes.
All right.
Who are you gonna say is the only other person you were about to say there?
Matt. I don't know who else I would have play him.
Matt's probably my favorite character on the show from front to back, but
Who else would you picture? I just
yeah,
felt
Carrie
for him.
Coon's the correct answer. That's the thing. Though.
There we go.
This
Move
isn't
on.
an opinion.
Yes.
That's
All
the
right.
correct answer.
All right. So
Listen, fact, not opinion, okay?
boom. All right. So
Our number 5.
our number 5.
Our number 5 would be Sam's mom.
Okay.
Having her
the
be
the baby's mom, the show opener.
show opener, and having her Sam, like it was kind of ridiculous in the beginning, but having her reappear at the end of season 1, saying the line "We're still here," and then also having her reappear in Certified, bringing the whole series back around on itself, and having her talk about how she was trying so hard to have babies and she couldn't do it, and then the one baby she has, it departs.
And then how she goes back and she's nervous.
That was so good.
Like, what if, how would he learn how to crawl? And, what if he comes back? Oh my God, I just couldn't. So good in such a captivating way to catch us all in the beginning of the series. And then to have that little bow at the end. Like, this is her, that person that made you feel all the feels.
Made you feel even worse now.
Yeah.
Because that baby was the miracle effing baby.
That actually scene was probably one of the most heartbreaking of the entire series. That and Grace's story also in the season as well. I almost forgot about that, and your reminder right now just hit me with that story again, and I almost forgotten about it.
Mary has a great theory on Grace.
I still don't like Grace.
Have you heard Mary's theory on Grace yet?
Oh, great.
I would love to hear it.
Sounds like Grace is under fire.
Okay, I think Grace is a
Nice
liar.
callback.
I think Grace is a straight up liar. And I was so ready for the writers to show us that she's a liar. This whole shoe story, I'm just not behind. I just feel like she's fishy. But really what led me to it was she was supposedly at Wegmans, like a grocery store. When
Or
the
the Big W,
Or the
not
Big W. Why am I
Wegmans.
thinking, what is Wegmans?
I don't even know what Wegmans is.
Google it.
I'm legitimately Googling as
I
we
knew it
speak.
began with W. She was at
Fucking Wegmans. What the hell is
no.
I have no idea what's happening right now.
What is Wegmans? What is it?
I don't know, but if it is something, they will not be.
It
our
is a
sponsor in the
grocery
future.
store.
Wegmans is a thing.
It's totally
Speaking
a
of which,
grocery
this
store.
episode is sponsored by Wegmans. Check them out.
Anyway, she was at the Big W. Her story is that she was at the Big W.
It is. Wegmans Food Markets, Inc. is a privately held American
Markets.
regional supermarket chain headquartered in Gates, New York, near Rochester.
Maybe because I've been in New York so much recently. There we go.
Wegmans.
So the Big W, she was food shopping when the departure happened. Okay, so here's a question for you guys. And the departure happened and she couldn't call home and she walked all this way or whatever. I don't know. There's this huge story. So what time did the departure happen ish in America, in New York? Somewhere in the middle of the day, right? Because, Sam's mom was doing laundry. So that means that she was shopping at the W, grocery shopping, in the middle of the night because Australia is on the opposite side of the world than New York. And if it happened around 2
I think they're
p.m.
an entire day difference, though.
No.
Isn't it like a 24-hour difference?
Because that would mean we'd have two suns. So no. Because when I was in Bali, it was nighttime when it was here, daytime. Because Blake and I would call each other and I'd be like, all right, it's, 9 p.m. here. That means it's 9 a.m. there. So they're the complete opposite. So when she said that she was food shopping, I was like, no, you can't be.
Okay, Australia is 14 hours ahead of New York.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have the converter up too. So let's say 3 p.m. in New York. It's 5:30 in the morning there. So if it's 5 p.m. in New York, which it could be, it's 7:30 in the morning in Australia, Central Time. That's even Central. So I think there's a Western Time to Australia also that would be.
I think it was middle of the day. And I just wasn't feeling
Listen,
that story.
what I want to know is who the hell goes to Wegmans at 3 a.m? That's what I
Come
want to
on,
know.
Wegmans.
So
Shout out to Wegmans if you're a fan
once-
of Wegmans. Email
Once
us
she
in.
said that, I was kind of like, wait up, girl, you're fibbing. And I really was like, the writers wouldn't have made this little weird mistake of her food shopping in the middle of the night. This must be something that we need to cling to, like how we missed that Evie was quiet in the car in the second season. And then it turned out to be nothing. So, but I still don't trust Grace. And her kids didn't care about their effing shoes because she was shady. I'm sticking to it.
I'm glad I shut down the conversation about the shoes on our episode, Gina, when everybody was speculating
I
on the
wanted
shoes.
to know where they are. Apparently,
was
they're
like,
in
I
Grace's
don't care.
closet.
all right, number 4 for you guys. What do you have?
Take this one, Gina.
Okay, I'll take that one. So I'm a pretty big music nerd and always responding to music on shows. And I think the music selection throughout the series is incredible. Sometimes it's really ironic and a weird music choice that just pops in and kind of shocks you into paying attention or to thinking a little bit deeper. And then sometimes it's really, really literal. And the lyrics are about exactly what you're watching. And I actually did some research on it because I thought, well, who actually picks the music and who supervises that? So the music supervisor is Liza Richardson. I read a few articles of hers, and she says that Damon Lindelof pretty much comes up with the songs that he wants to use. And it's her job to figure out if they can use that exact song or if they need to find a song that's very similar to that. And budget kind of is an issue in there. So if he wants this really big song, that might not be in the budget, but then she finds a different one. But, you know, however they get to the final product, I always think the music is just great and really interesting. And there's a few certain moments that really stand out to me with the music being used. So I was wondering kind of what are those moments for you, just songs that you really remember as iconic in the show?
Verdi.
I'm gonna say, I'll say the Perfect Strangers theme when that was used on there.
So good.
That evoked something from I think everybody.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
I could wake up to that theme song every morning and just rule the world.
It's like one of
the most
theme
positive
songs
lyrics of just taking on life, and it's a great one.
I felt that Otis Redding, I've Got Dreams, at the end, when they're dancing at the wedding, was unbelievable because, you know, Kevin is lying to Nora, but he's trying to bring back their relationship, and it is a tad ironic, as you just said, Gina, but just talking about their lives and all the good things that he's trying to bring back, and I've got dreams to remember, and oh my God, and like I love the funny, like the stories that Damon Lindelof has along with Liza Richardson. Like for that particular scene, it was supposed to be "I Will Always Love You" by Dolly Parton, and he was like, "No, I'm not doing that," because like that's what they danced to when they were filming, and they couldn't get it cleared.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they couldn't get it cleared. So
Yeah.
Damon Lindelof is like, I had Kevin listening to Otis Redding in earlier seasons, and he built out this whole character trait of Kevin, like who likes soulful music. So he knew he had "I've Got Dreams" in his back pocket to have them dance to, and ultimately it worked out for the better. The same thing goes for "Homeward Bound." It was supposed to be "Like a Virgin" by Madonna, but they couldn't get it cleared. So
I think for the better.
Way for the better. So
Definitely.
So it ended up being "Homeward Bound" as a result of that. So awesome job, Gina. I think that is a fantastic pick.
Yeah. It's just throughout the show, it really kept me interested. One of the ones that stands out to me is when Meg is in the bathroom during lunch and White Lines starts playing.
Oh yes.
And you just do not expect that kind of a song, and it starts at da 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 da, and you're like, where's this going? And then that one is extremely literal.
Yep.
But also ironic. So they really play that kind of line well.
Or how about "You're the One That I Want" in season 2?
Yes.
Oh, when he's walking back in the house. Oh God, that was awesome.
Yeah, just all the contemporary ones to the really classical ones they picked. It's just really great, and just really drove the show for me.
Two things real quick, too. I also want to go one step further and just say the score in general is probably one of the best scores of any show ever of all time. But the James Blake theme that both of us use for our intro podcast, I'll walk away with that song, you know, obviously completely resonating with me more than anything. It's completely stuck in my head, and it was our first representation on the show completely. So I absolutely adore that song. And, you know, as the second season came and we got a new theme song and all that stuff, we obviously, just like you guys, kept the same thing because I just think that song feels like The Leftovers more than any other song.
Right. That song is synonymous now with, like, you can't have one without the other, in my opinion.
Other than the score, obviously, the na na.
Right,
I'm
right.
not going to keep singing that.
Yeah, no, I'm going to let you sit with that one. I'm going to let you. I'm not going to rescue you. Go ahead, keep singing.
Appreciate it. No, this is not score karaoke. Man, that would be awful.
Oh my God!
Just
Just humming, lots of humming.
That's actually one of the options in that game Heads Up, that iPhone game, that app, is you have to hum. You have to hum like shows and songs. It's terrible.
My.
Although, Dylan, do you remember the time I made you sing the Independence Day song?
Yeah, and I got it immediately. I just pulled it out because you challenged me like I wouldn't be able to do it.
Do it again.
It is today we celebrate our Independence Day. Dun 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 dun.
Yes, good boy. That a boy.
You like how I had to go through that scene?
I know.
In order to have the score.
Thank you, Bill Pullman.
I was like, oh crap. Oh wait, no, I can pull out that anyway.
Yeah, I did question your ability to name the score because you were like, "Oh, the score is like the best thing of the film," and I was like, "No, you can't even name it."
I say it was one of the most iconic cinema scores in history, and I still stand by Independence Day scores being one of them. Not the most. I'm saying one of them.
It's no Forrest Gump, but it's close.
Forrest Gump,
Forrest Gump doesn't have a theme
That's a great
that
score.
everybody can just come out with, though. A theme. I meant like
Forrest
a theme.
Gump?
Are you kidding?
Yeah, what's the theme to Forrest Gump?
Do 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 do.
Do 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 do
Cue the feather in the
I
wind.
did not expect the background vocals to come in on that one.
Thank you guys.
Wow.
I got you.
Powerful.
The next thing you're going to tell me, Dylan, is that Deep Impact is better than Armageddon. Okay, we all know the truth behind this.
I don't want to start giving you facts again like that. Anyway,
All right,
Our number
for
4.
you, my darling. What
For
do you
us.
got
For us.
Yes, sorry.
Just how self-aware the show was, because knowing, like we just talked about, changing the theme song and doing that almost every single week this season.
But even the second season, like just saying "Let the mystery be," like that was so self-aware.
And even the opening,
Right.
gosh, they just. I will never forget turning on that show and hearing that poppy music, and both of us going, "What are we watching? What is going on? Is this HBO? Did you change the channel?"
Iris Dement. Now, that song is now, it's an earwormed into my brain. I cannot get rid of that song ever.
There were just so many little jokes
Yes.
that they continued to have, including Justin Theroux's package.
The penis shelf.
Oh goodness!
Oh, that's not a joke.
No, but like the fact that they keep referencing it, despite the fact that I'm sure he's fucking mortified over the size of, it is what it is. They keep referencing his penis size.
Well,
I think
they
that's
do.
awesome.
Or like
Subtly or not so subtly?
when we were talking about our list, Gina wanted to say, "Hey, can we make one of them gray jogging sweatpants?"
Oh man.
but even something like Gary Busey, just bringing
Yeah. Oh,
that
that was
back,
great.
just knowing that they were adding these little things just to keep tying it in, saying, we know you guys are getting
even
these
Mark
jokes.
Lynn
Perfect
Baker.
Strangers.
Yeah, Mark
Yeah,
Lynn
Perfect
Baker was perfect. Going from an inside joke to actually making him a
Character.
a vital part of the narrative for season 3. Like without him, that whole season 3 kind of crumbles a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, not crumbles, but it loses its luster a little bit because it was so crazy to
And
have
narrative
Mark
drive.
Lynn Baker, who is a comedic actor, go in there and totally rock it. By the way,
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
rock it. I love that how self-aware the show was, and it saw all the jokes and it kept going back to kind of like Arrested Development almost, like with the chicken dance. That's what it felt like to me, and I really loved that.
So what is your next item of your favorite things of the show?
So for number 3, we put the International Assassin World, but mainly the episode International Assassin. I just love how much that expanded everything. Like everything just blew up after that. Like, what does that mean? And the ramifications of it were thought of for the rest of the series, really until the final episode, or not the final episode, but the most powerful man in the world episode of that. Because that just completely changed the tone, and it left things open for this biblical story that was at least initially told in season 3. But the ramifications that expanded the mythology in general of the show, and I don't think that's ever a bad thing. And I don't think it did it in an unfocused way, like I think Lost did a lot. I feel like it was really focused the way it did that, and it didn't like say, "Hey, here's an International Assassin world, and here's another world, and here's another world, and here's another world." It was kind of just like, here's one extra aspect to this, which is this one whatever it means world. If that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I loved International Assassin. I loved everything about it. I loved how crazy it was. I loved how everything seemed opposite in a lot of times from the real world. And you could make the argument like that it was kind of like the sideways Flash from Lost if you really wanted to. But I really, really enjoyed it because it gave you such an emotional connection to the character in a way that you would think would not work in any circumstance on any show. But by heightening how bonkers it really was, it really gave you more of a detailed dive and drilled down characterization of each person, especially Justin Theroux and Kevin Garvey, or in this case Kevin Harvey. But either way, I loved it. For us, number 3 was the move to Miracle.
Miracle.
Specifically because Mary sings it every time I say the word miracle.
Miracle.
But more importantly, because it opened up the world of The Leftovers. It gave you, as much as you talked to Dylan about opening up the mythology in International Assassin, the move to Miracle really opened up, I felt like, the mythology of the show and the world of the show. It felt a lot bigger than just what it was in small little Mapleton, New York.
It made it more supernatural. I mean, this is when the stuff started to happen for Kevin that we've been discussing. And this place had no departures. I mean, just you knew, as soon as you got there and you heard that this place existed, you knew something special was going to happen.
Right. And
did you guys discuss the world that Nora had supposedly traveled to in the finale, in the series finale, what that meant for Jordan? That means the entire town was cleared out for Jordan? Like, as far as they thought the entire town was wiped away?
No.
So essentially you're saying since
no survivors of Jordan,
no survivors whatsoever, they all left.
Yeah. Not Miracle.
So it was totally empty.
It was called
Miracle.
Sad.
Yeah.
Sad City.
It probably did not have the term miracle in that world. Yeah, that's true. I think that's for sure.
Or it was like Sucks or something.
Sucks.
Welcome to Sucky
Sucks,
National
Texas.
Park.
Welcome to Sucks, Texas.
But we're making fun of Sucks, Texas, but the fact that it really created a distinctive setting. Like every show needs a good distinctive setting, whether it's Breaking Bad in New Mexico or you can argue Bloodline, how great it is, but the Florida Keys and Bloodline is really unique.
Miami and Dexter.
Miami and Dexter, okay?
It might as well have been a character itself.
Exactly. Lost in Hawaii, okay? All of those things were so super important. And while Mapleton was nice, seeing Jordan and seeing the visiting center and it being in Texas and everyone was sweaty and that is wholly unique to The Leftovers.
Yes,
I feel like.
yes, I agree.
And because of that,
they really did film in Texas. That part is filmed in Austin.
Right, exactly.
So I like how they made it actually, it's not the hills of LA, and then they said it was Texas. So like many TV shows do. So it was just very authentic looking.
Right. And
which was great.
So because you were able to film there and you were able to kind of sequester the cast a little bit down in this random part of Texas, you allowed yourself new cast members and it allowed new creative juices to flow for The Leftovers.
I have to say there was a movie last year, a sequel to Jack Reacher, Never Go Back, which is such an unconscionably bad movie. A lot of the movie took place in New Orleans during Mardi Gras.
Oh, wow.
And they could not have done less with the locale. Like when you think that, you're like, oh, this action movie is going to take advantage of this location. And you can see in that movie how much you can fail at using your surroundings as a character itself.
Right.
And then you'll really appreciate places like Jordan in this show. To see how much that can fall in its place. That's not guaranteed to you just because you're in a different location.
Yep.
You actually have to be good at bringing the location alive, and they did it really well in the show.
And the funny thing is, I remember after season 1, and then when it was announced that season 2 was coming, and they were making the jump to Miracle, everybody and their mother was just shitting on The Leftovers. Oh, they can't tell their story right. They got to reboot, But it was the best.
All East Coast people that are doing that too?
Yeah, exactly. But it was the best thing possible for that show. It was it took it to the next level.
It made the whole world. Before it was just that town.
Yep.
And by moving to Jordan and letting us understand the scope, and just not just because Jordan was special, but to see all those people who flooded there for this hope. All the people from around the world, they spoke different languages, they wore different clothing. Jordan was allowed us to understand the entire world was affected. It's not just the guilty remnant versus Kevin and Matt.
Right.
It is an entire world that is clueless and begging for answers.
Excellent point. It's not.
And that was a
just the
hotspot of zaniness across the whole world. that was like a hotspot, right? It was
It was like
a
Times
concentration.
Square, New Year's Eve.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, concentration. It was almost like that place was a miracle.
Oh.
Miracle.
Okay, just testing to make sure your soundboard works.
All right. Number 2. What do you guys got?
All right, Gina's going to take this one,
I
even
think
though
that's me.
Blake kind of referenced this earlier, but he didn't completely go there. We didn't respond to him when he was talking about this because
Was it
we
the
were-
Lion
Because
sex
we
cult?
knew it was coming up on our end. Sorry, Blake. But we noticed that the casting is not only spot on by just casting amazing actors, but at the time and still now, it's a lot of relatively unknown actors. And, that could have been a budget issue or it was a newer show on HBO, but it could have also been really intentional because watching them act and not seeing them in a lot of other projects made it really real to me that I'm, watching these people in Mapleton, in Miracle.
I compared it to Moneyball. That's what I put
Yeah,
on.
that was a
yeah.
good comparison.
I said it's like Brad Pitt is Damon Lindelof, and he got a bunch of people together that had flashes in the pan. There, one was the villain of Zoolander, right? Like, and they got a couple people sprinkled here. One of the characters who played Doctor Who was probably the biggest star moving into it, and then kind of sprinkled them all around and somehow brought this championship contending team together out of almost all these misfit toys, almost.
Right.
And then it really gave them a chance that they had never gotten a chance before to really shine. Who knows if Carrie Coon ever would have gotten a chance to shine without the show. It's just they found the diamond in the rough over and over again on the show, including the Carver twins.
Even
The
like
Carver twins, where are they now?
even Thoreau. I mean, Thoreau really grew into that role. And-
Grew into it.
Yeah.
I did not like him that much in the first season, but he grew.
Although
He
he
grew into it.
he's a shower, not a grower, but he did grow into.
I don't even know what that means.
Seems
What
like
does
he's a
that
shower
mean?
also, my friend. I'll just say.
What does that mean?
You don't know what shower, not a grower means, or
No.
grower, not a shower.
Save that
No.
for the After Dark section of the
Oh man.
Is it
Save
a
it for the
perverted
after.
thing?
It's when a man is easily presentable, and
Like he wears nice clothes?
no.
Oh my God!
This is amazing.
It's when he his penis
It means
is large.
you are bigger when
Okay.
you're erect. It means he's bigger when he's erect. That's what a shower, not a grower means.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
Thank you,
no,
Dylan.
Sorry. Grower,
Wait,
not a shower.
That
Opposite.
means he grows. I'm so
Right.
confused.
No, never mind. You know what? We're going to take this conversation. We're
Some
gonna
of them
let that
don't
sit.
get bigger?
Grower, not a shower is what a
Yes.
guy would say if he just got out of the pool and he didn't want everybody to judge him. He'd say, "I'm a grower, not a shower."
Yes.
Like just wait for it to happen.
Yeah, you're like,
Gotcha.
don't worry, I'm not Mickey Mouse over here. Right? I have some assets here. Anyways,
Not
And
Mickey
then some
Mouse.
people are just show offs all the time.
Like Justin Thoreau.
He's not a show off, is he?
No, he's a shower.
he's a shower, not a grower. But he probably grows also.
Oh, I'm sure he's a grower too.
Oh my God. Now that
Sounds
I
like
get
great.
this.
It sounds like a great
I
spin-off
hope he's
podcast,
listening.
guys.
I really hope he's
I think we have a great spin-off idea. about
I'm uncomfortable.
The showers and growers of Hollywood.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Whenever Dylan and I get together for these, it just goes off the rails.
He goes off the
so
But luckily,
quickly.
this was not our fault this time.
No, this was
not-
completely my
Right.
fault. Thank you.
We're along for the ride.
Well,
What's your guys' number
I don't
two?
even remember what your number 2 was. What the hell was it again?
Casting.
Oh,
It
the
was
casting.
casting,
Okay.
kind of casting unknowns, and obviously they're coming into their own and doing an amazing job. And the fact that they weren't big celebrities to begin with, I think, made the show more real and more relatable and just really interesting to watch.
Actually, Amy Brenneman is probably the most famous.
Yeah.
I was actually just going to say that to you when
Yeah.
you mentioned Christopher Eccleston. I think Brenneman was probably the biggest one. And
At least-
the most
As
ironic
far-
thing is that she didn't freaking speak in the first
I
season.
know.
Yeah,
I know.
So that's the irony behind that. All right, my darling, I know this one's big for you, so I'm going to let you take this.
Max Richter.
Max Richter.
there
That's
you go.
right. I mean there are certain times when shows are like we talked about the musical selection with Liza Richardson earlier. And I really feel like there are certain shows that are synonymous with their scores.
Yes.
Lost is perfect. Number one. Battlestar Galactica is probably number two. But
24 with Sean Callery is a pretty notable score as far as that show goes. But
yeah, I would agree. But I don't think it was
not as much as Lost is.
Yeah, it's not as in depth as the others. But
it's like cinematic. Is that what you're trying to say? Like,
well, no. I mean, Calorie was relatively cinematic, but I just felt like there was you had the 24 theme, dun, 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 like that.
Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun.
who knew this episode was going to have so much singing?
I know. And penis talk.
Oh my God! Stop.
I'd say Dexter should be up there too. Now that I keep talking about Dexter, but the score in Dexter is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes, actually.
And the little ding at the end of the credits, ding.
Yeah, right.
Self-aware right there.
So I really feel like Richter. There are certain shows that are just synonymous with their scores, and that one cannot exist without the other. And my darling, I know how you feel.
Oh
about
gosh, his scoring just took your emotions to a whole new level. It's like they guided you, especially in that first season when you didn't know what was going on in the show and you didn't know how to describe it to people and you didn't know how you even felt about it. But the score kind of acted like training wheels. Like, here, explore these emotions and explore these and let's pull at this feeling. Like things that you didn't know you were feeling, the music would then highlight for you. And it just continued to do that throughout the rest of the seasons. And I loved that because it just added so much depth.
Yep.
When I already thought my brain was fried trying to figure out the show, then Max Richter challenged me to go and feel and think even deeper.
By the third season, it had almost become a Pavlovian cue, where you're like, okay, I hear the music, I know shit's going down.
Oh my God, that theme.
Yes.
And
Okay. I have a question for you guys.
Sure.
And I'm going to leave this for Blake last. I'm going to Gina first, then Mary second. What score do you think you would take if you had to? Lost or The Leftovers?
What do you mean that I would take that I like the most?
Desert Island.
I don't know. If you had to eliminate one from existence, I don't know.
Oh.
I'd tell you right now, I'd take The Leftovers. And I'll tell you why.
Over
It's
Lost?
Over Lost. And that's not a knock on Lost at all, because Lost would be second,
I know.
probably. But there's that scene that floated on YouTube, I'm sure maybe you guys have seen it as well, of people taking the Leftover score and putting it over a scene of Lost.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Lost became,
I have not seen that.
Lost became almost more powerful for me, the scene that I saw on that.
Oh.
For that reason, I feel like the iconic score from The Leftovers would probably just edge out, and that's again not a knock on the Lost at all.
Yeah.
But man, the score from the show is outstanding.
Well, and if you don't like violins, then you're definitely not going to root for the Lost score. A lot of violin in that one.
what about you, Mary? Like,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. I thought,
Mary, go ahead. What do you got?
If I had to take
You had to take
Lost or
the
the
leftovers.
Leftovers.
Desert Island, you had to take one.
Okay, so
Score.
I didn't think
score,
that.
not a show.
Yeah,
Score.
no, I didn't think I would say this, but I would take The Leftovers.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you why. And I love Michael Giacchino. I love him so much. But sometimes his music startled me in that show a little too much. Whereas I feel like if I was stuck on a desert island and I was zoning out, his music would scare me a little too much. But Max Richter's music would make me, I don't know. I mean, if I could pick
Less
and
trumpets.
choose. If I could pick and choose which songs, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just feel like some of Michael's was jarring because it needed to be jarring. And I'm not saying that Max's weren't, because some of them were. But they were just, I'll tell you this. Blake has, like, the Lost CDs on his playlist. And every once in a while, I'll be like comfy and cozy and listening to it. And then one will just come and it will shake the room. And I'll be all,
anxiety.
yeah.
They give you anxiety big time.
And if I was already on a desert island, I would already have bad anxiety.
And then you're thinking of Lost scenarios. You know?
Okay.
Black
Yeah,
smoke
it's
monster.
not fitting
First
for a
of all,
desert island.
Blake added the desert island thing to my question.
Well, that's all I was thinking is if I was stuck on a desert island, I'd already be so anxious. If I wasn't stuck on a desert island and if I could just have an MP3 player and I could choose whatever I wanted, I would then have to say Lost because it was a very important show to Blake and I.
Yes, it was.
And it would give me all the feels.
Yeah, well, you know what? Thank you very
You're
much,
welcome.
my darling. I appreciate that.
Our courtship.
Yeah, no, seriously, like we legitimately got married because of Lost. I'm not even
You said it
kidding.
was because of Harry Potter, guys. You said it was because of Harry Potter.
No, we started
No.
dating because of Harry
Yeah,
Potter.
that was the first
So you
question
need-
on
you
our
need to
first
date
date.
before you get married. in this
Lost sealed the
society.
deal.
Yeah,
In
no,
this
it really
society,
did.
You need to date before you get married. Unfortunately,
As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a little known secret on our wedding card, like the program for the wedding. On the back of it, there was the scene. I wrote out all the entire scene from the script from Lost when Jin is talking to Sun's dad, and Sun's dad was saying, "Why would I give my daughter up to somebody who'd give up his dreams so easily?" And Jin says, "Because she is my dream."
Oh, I just got goosebumps.
I know, right? And I had that whole thing on our
Yeah.
program, and people were like, "What the hell is this? Who's Sun and Jin?" And I'm like, "Well,
Are we at the wrong wedding?
it's because you're dumb, bro. Don't worry about it." and so yeah, that's how much Lost meant to Mary and I. But for myself, despite the fact, and I'm not kidding about this, I listened to the departure theme, the soft piano, literally on repeat all day in my car ride. And I drive about 3 hours per day for work. All day. It was just on repeat. I have no idea why. I would take the Lost soundtrack just because it's such a deep, and the breadth of the Lost soundtrack is so vivid. It's just you can't beat it. You cannot beat it.
I must say also, just like we were quiet when you guys mentioned casting. Gina, do you notice they were quiet when I said the score? They had nothing to add to it, and that was a little suspicious for me. So I felt like that was coming.
Yeah.
All right, number one for you guys. What do you got?
All right, so the ending of this would be what I think is the most important part of the show in general, is the study of grief. I think that I don't think I've ever seen a show study grief in such a way, because it's something that everybody can relate to in one way, and I think it's something I connected to. I mean, as somebody who's lost his father, because there's no right answer for how you're supposed to grieve.
Right.
Grieve, sorry. Because I guess the best way I can say it is that grief is boundless. There's no one way. There's no boundary for it. There's no supposed to with grief. And I feel like the show understood that better than any other show that I've seen study it or explore it. And I think that it was a theme that was consistent from the first episode to the last episode, no matter how much things got zany or kooky or went off the rails or went, internal, external, however it went. The study of grief was consistent throughout the entire series. And it was the most powerful moments of the series, if you ask me.
Very good.
I like it.
Excellent. Gina,
Anything
got
else
anything to
anybody
add to
else
that?
Yeah, and I think it went through every season. It was something that was overreaching and probably one of the, main themes of the entire series. So, yeah, I do think it was really central to the story. And I have to agree that there's all these different ways that they're showing characters from different perspectives, from different stories. But the main thing is loss that everyone's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I have to agree that was a major theme of the show, and they showed that in a really interesting and thought-provoking way.
Number one for us would be the unfinished love story and everything that it represents, whether it is depression or whether it is love or it is struggling to find a place in where you exist. That sudden moment, the realization from Kevin that he did fuck up. And the most important thing is not being an international assassin. It's not being Chief Garvey. It's being loved by Nora. And that core relationship, regardless, like you said, Dylan, almost how, no matter how crazy things got, even though, Kevin Harvey is the president of the United States and he's the leader of the GR party, he had to battle himself. He had to take off his own little devil and realize that he did fuck up. And he had to confront himself, and all of that is captured by the unfinished love story.
Well, and I took it, so Blake got that out of the unfinished love story, but I got that during times of sadness and unknowing and grief, what can be your beacon of light is love. And to really, hold tight to your family who, hopefully you get along with, and to hold tight to those people who you do love, whether they are your friends or there's someone who you loved that, we don't know what comes after. We don't know if we're going to depart. We don't know what's going to happen in 5 minutes from now. But if you can find ways to be with the ones that you love and to stay close with them, that's what matters. And that's why I was cool with there being an episode about Kevin Sr., because I kind of felt like we needed to say goodbye to all of these family and friends and loved ones that Kevin loved. Even though at the end it became like a love story about Kevin and Nora, I felt like these were all of Kevin's loves, and he was able to share a lot with them. So love.
So before we get into the next portion of this episode, I do actually want to ask you guys a question, and I'm sure you've gone over it on your show, but I think it's germane to the conversation we're about to have, which is, did you or did you not believe Nora and her story? And
I knew that was coming for some reason. I don't know why I knew that was coming.
And or does it even matter? And I would like to get your thoughts.
We have definitely discussed this.
Yeah, so I guess this is something I wanted to address too, because actually we did get a lot of flack about this on our on the Guilty Remnant podcast, because we didn't even speculate. We didn't even go into it. Because I left the show feeling like Damon Lindelof himself doesn't have an answer for this, whether or not she was telling the truth or not. I just felt it almost mundane to discuss it, because the story was told, and it was told the way it was, and it was left open, let the mystery be, right? And they gave just as much evidence that she was lying as to her telling the truth. And for me, when I broke down that for the episode, I realized there is no answer. That was and debating people saying that I'm right and they're wrong with it wasn't really something that I wanted to get into, and we kind of left it at that. And we got emails saying, I can't believe blah blah blah. I feel like you're really down on the series because of that. I'm like, no, I'm not disappointed by it. It's just that's how I took it. If I had to lean, and this is something I didn't say on that podcast because I didn't realize that people wanted to hear answers. If I had to lean in a direction, I choose to believe that she's lying. And maybe that's not a positive thing for people or anything like that. And I don't think it's a negative thing. I just, the show did show that she was capable of lying, and there's a lot of questions that come from her journey. I think it's just as equal chance on either one, but I guess I choose to believe that she was not telling the truth, and that's not what happened to her. Why? I can't tell you. It's just a feeling, I guess. There's lots of different things that.
Gina, how about you? What do you think?
Well, Dylan and I actually watched the finale together, and so of course, when I first saw it, I took it as truth. I didn't even think deeper about it because, like we said, this is one of those ones that you really kind of have to think about to start understanding. And then it was brought up, the possibility that it could be a lie, and then I couldn't get that out of my head. So I definitely went back and forth quite a bit. I slept on it. I think I texted Dylan the next day, like, okay, I changed my mind. I think she did this. I think she did that. I do agree with him. I think that the creators definitely meant for this to be ambiguous. Do you
agree that they don't have an answer themselves?
I do. I fully think that they wanted to leave this open-ended and without an answer, and that's the point. And again, I am the type of person who has a hard time with that sometimes because I do like answers, and I do like, they're dangling the mysteries, and I want the answer. But I am trying to be better about letting the mystery be. And so, yeah, I kind of accept Dylan's take on it and agree with it. And I kind of feel like if I had to choose, I would also agree with the fact that she's lying. And again, I don't really have a solid proof. It's just a feeling I get. I think she's certainly capable of doing that. And I think it would kind of be along with her character from what I've seen. So if I had to choose, I think she's lying. But I also like the idea of it being ambiguous and just not really knowing.
Do you
I mean, she
think
is still in Australia. She did show she could lie earlier. I think she may have been trying to coddle Kevin as well. But
and there was a line somewhere, I can't remember specifics, where someone said something about a lie. Well, it was just a nicer story.
Oh yeah, it was the nun.
nun.
Yeah, the nun.
Yeah.
The Bump and Uglies
that
nun.
kind of reminded me of Nora. Like, it was
Did that
too much for
resonate
her
with
to
her?
actually, it was too much to actually process not going through it and abandoning people. But, when she was faced with Kevin, she just wanted to tell a nicer story and repair that relationship. And again, that's to me in line with her character.
Do you guys think that Kevin believes her?
I don't think he cares either way. He's just so happy to be reunited with her. I think he would believe anything at this point because he worked so hard to get back to her. And he's just, especially in that moment where it's still really new of their being reunited, he just looks so happy throughout. And so I think she kind of could have said anything, and
I think he
it
believes her
doesn't really matter.
I think he believes her because it didn't seem like he had the option of doubt even on his mind.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't even seem like that was something, am I going to think about whether or not this is true or not? I don't think that was even, he's like, I want to hear what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was what was going on in his mind. I don't even think he was thinking, should I believe or should I not believe what she has to say? I don't even think that was something that occurred to him.
I just
And
hope
I
they
think
don't
on
have
a deeper level, like, I'm just happy that we're talking. I'm happy I'm at the same table as you. I'm happy we're in the same room together. Like, he was just happy to be there at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just hoping that if he does believe, that he doesn't have an awkward conversation with her in about 2 weeks, once they get over the pleasantries, where he can be like, so tell me more about the departed world.
Yeah. So was
She's
it
like,
warm?
nah, you don't want to know.
Yeah.
It was all right.
Did you get
Who's the
margaritas over
president
there? Dylan, I agree with you guys that I think that she is making up a story.
You didn't at first, though.
I didn't at first.
Blake.
I took it as it was at first.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking about it.
Why did you start thinking about it? Because who said something to you?
Because my beautiful bride,
That's right,
sitting across the way from me, had mentioned to me that before the shot cuts, Nora
has the water-like substance.
in the bubble, right before it cuts, she starts to say, this S sound started to come out of her mouth. And, you don't take a deep breath by going, you take a deep breath by going, and
Could you show us both those examples once again? Like,
Sounds like a medical emergency happening.
I know, right?
Over there.
Call 911. So, and because she did the S sound, it sounded like it was going to be a stop. But I disagree with everybody here in that I do feel like Damon and Tom Perrotta, they had intent with Nora. I feel like they had a certain intent, and even Damon has come out saying he didn't tell that intent to either Carrie Coon or Justin Theroux or even Mimi Leder as she directed it. He just let them figure out their own answer for what they're acting and trying to capture.
did you have your interview with him yet?
No, that is actually happening tomorrow.
Could you please ask him if he has an answer in his head, at least? I'm sure you're going to ask him that anyway, right?
Yes, I'm going to ask him that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm positive that he had intent, and whether or not he plans on letting that intent loose or he is taking it to his grave, I respect.
What do you mean by intent? Like, do you think here?
I think
'cause
Damon
everyone's
has
answering with different words than I'm using. I'm saying, do you think that he has an answer in his head?
Yes,
of
that's
whether
what
or
I
not she
mean
was
by
lying?
intent. I think he has an intentional purpose of what he was trying to say via what he wrote. However, when someone is acting it one way and another person is capturing it another way, and the writers have another intent, who's to say which is more true? The writer's intent or the people who are actually performing it? Because it's being performed one way, even though it's written a completely different way. So with that said, I think there is intent there, and I think that he does have an answer. He just probably isn't going to say it to anybody. So,
And you're interviewing Damon Lindelof?
Yes, I'm interviewing him
Oh my
tomorrow.
God.
For the third time.
Yes, for the third
Aw.
time. Yeah. So
Can you tell him I say hi?
I
They're
certainly
pretty much
will.
having sleepovers
like
at
his
this
shows.
point.
So yeah, I was. So I think that Nora is telling a story because it is a nicer story, and ultimately Kevin just believes her, and that's okay. And they are there. We are still here. That is ultimately what it comes down to. So that's because of that. So, my darling, what do you think if you had the chance to go back in time and tell Damon, hey, I think you should change this?
Which apparently you can do. When you want to.
Yeah, you can.
You don't have to go back in time. Go forward.
What would you do to make a change? Like, what would the change be?
I would get a few more celebrities on board early on who are friends with Justin Theroux and say, hey, we're going to need your help. We're going to need your help. If you like this show in the first season, can you do us a fave and shout it from the mountaintops? Because this is something special. And I feel like Jimmy Kimmel, tells everybody, but in season 3.
Yeah.
And-
where were
Yeah.
you, bro?
And I feel like
Bunch of bandwagon fans came on the show.
yeah, and I feel like if people had known in season 1 that maybe we would have gotten even more. And granted, I love these 3 seasons. I really do. And I'm glad there's no fluff. But I really wonder in season 1, when they were making these plans, if they saw it being a 5-season show and what that would have entailed and what stories would have been able to be told. And I just wish, HBO did an amazing job. They really pushed this show with its advertisements. They tried, but the viewers of this show
With Game of Thrones.
yeah with like hardcore thinking mature audiences but I don't know. I mean, the people who need to watch the show and who like the show are a unique breed. This isn't the always Gilmore Girls crew, even though I'm a Gilmore Girls fan. It's a different type of person, but I just wish that it's word of mouth. People who have started watching this show who are friends of ours who haven't watched it for the past few seasons, they're watching it now because they're seeing us online talking about it so much. And now they started and they binged it. And I just wish that we even had the foresight in season 1 to, and that's why I love Damon. I love that he's like thankful for the blogs and the podcast and he gets it. And we've been trying the best that we could. But I just wish that every single person could have gone back in time and told ourselves, scream a little bit louder.
Right.
Post a little bit more. Tell a couple more people about this show because it is that good. And even if it still just had these 3 seasons, I would have more people to talk about this show with.
I remember, when the season began, Spunky Misunderstood Genius, I remember having this conversation with you, and I wanted to bring this back up for Dylan and Gina, which is I really felt like at the time this show was way ahead of its time. It dealt in areas, it dealt in themes and tenors that I don't think television was quite ready for. And my proof of that is now you have shows like Bloodline and Westworld and doubling down on this kind of like Westworld was a good show, but it was so intensely focused on mood that it kind of got in its own way. And that mood, I feel like, was directly lifted off of The Leftovers. What do you guys think? Do you think the show was just ahead of itself? I think
there's a huge difference between binge watching it and starting from season 1.
Yes.
So Mary, when you were talking about who your friends who are now binge watching it, to me, we started in season 1, Dylan and I. And, we stuck with it and we saw what a great show it was. I went back and binge watched it a little while ago. A lot of things made so much more sense to me in a way that kept me watching instead of getting frustrated of like what's going on. And I feel like that frustration can really lose people 5 episodes in, where they're not getting a certain type of person, where they're not getting answers or they're really confused about who the characters are. And I found on a binge watch that I really took things in on a deeper level and it really helped me. And so I think people who are getting into it right now are watching those 3 seasons in a week. And it's just a very different watching experience when you do it like that. And so I think that might be part of the issue of why it didn't catch on in the early days.
I guess
Dylan, what do you think?
What I want to say is, I guess the thing I want to talk about the most as far as this goes is the critical bandwagon of this show. It was almost shocking. I saw, this was your guys' first podcast, just like it was my first podcast, right?
Technically, this is the second podcast, but this was the first fan podcast for us.
Yeah. And you guys had done Parrot Cast before this, right? You
Correct.
started that? All right. But this is your first big explosion of a podcast, right? And this, for us, I was putting so much weight into this. I was like, this show's coming up. It looks really good. It has a book. I'm going to read the book. I'm going to be invested in this. We're going to do this podcast, and contacted Tiffany, and we're all running on it, and I'm learning how to podcast and all that kind of stuff. And I put all this work into it, and I get a domain name, and I figure out how to do everything, and everything's new to me, and I learn how to do audio engineering. And then I start watching the show, and I'm like, this show's fantastic. I can't believe how much everyone's going to talk about it. And I go around the internet, and I see critics that I know of saying they gave the show up, that the show's never going to give answers, that they're not interested in it. And I was like, wow, like, what is wrong with them? Like, I can't believe that. Ones that, for instance, there's someone that Gina and I listen to very, very closely, two people that we listen to, and they both had said they gave it up, that they were not interested in, and they were glad to give it up. I heard them say in a podcast episode.
Oof.
And
I wonder how they feel now. I'd be really interested to
I know
see.
what they
I
feel
bet
like
they're
now
watching.
because now they're talking to everybody else about it. They're recommending it to other people on the podcast. I'm like, I heard you guys say you gave it up and you were glad you are, but now that everybody around the internet is raving about it, you're coming out of your shell. It's disappointing to see that had gotten that reaction at first. And sure, the show has evolved as it's gone along, but people jumped on the bandwagon on this in the last season, and I think that's after a second season that was so amazing. It's hard not to. But it is just crazy to experience it the way we all experienced it. Just to see it go from this little, this egg shell, or this egg that, hatched and turned into this beautiful, majestic bird that it did
Beautiful
by the final season.
by the way.
Just everybody walked by that egg, and now everyone's like, look, I've loved this bird I love this bird. And I'm like, I saw you guys pass by that egg so many times, and I guess I'm really doubling down on the analogy, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. I pay attention to what a lot of people said, and I've seen that it come full circle where it's generally a lauded show.
It's funny.
I would like to talk about the Emmys on this when we're done with all this. Let's talk about what our Emmy expectations are, but let's do that for the end if you guys are
sure. I was just going to say, Dylan, though, like you said, it's like this little egg, and great analogy. And when you say that,
except.
When you say that, it actually makes me think I have a real sense of ownership over this show. Mm-hmm. I really feel like this is like I helped birth it. I don't know why. I feel like this is mine. And I don't want any like you posers out there to like watch it and listen to it and be like, oh, I love The Leftovers. And you came in because it was.
I love your mocking voices. It's always different.
Yeah. or it could be like my good Boston. Yeah, guy. I love The Leftovers. It's wicked good. I watched it one time and it was awesome. That's how I feel. And I have a sense of ownership over it because, you've been podcasting about it, since day one. We have, other guys, Jay and Jack and Bald Move, we've all been podcasting about it from day one. And I feel like we kind of like helped shepherd it to the masses, and that's why I feel like I have a little bit of ownership over it. Even
and
though
Damon
I still
Lindelof thanked you personally for that too. So I think that you're I think that's another reason you're really taking ownership of that.
No.
When I heard him say that in your interview, in your interview, because obviously I listened to your interview on Damon Lindelof, obviously, I was like, hey, I feel like he's talking to me in this scene also, even though I'm not being said by name at all.
No, he is. I mean, when he said, I remember it vividly. He said, if he didn't have the benefit of running his own show, he would have a fan-based podcast about whatever specific show he liked at that time. And when and the funny thing is I could see him because we were on a Skype call, and I could see him and Tom Parada, and they were looking at me like I'm trying my hardest not to tear up.
I would not want video on it. I would be like, no video, please.
I know, because I already had to take Xanax in order to interview you, guy, and now you're gonna make me cry on my own podcast. Like, what the hell? But no, it was I do take a little bit of ownership over it, and when he does say that.
Lost, if you ever knew that you would be put in a situation where you could do that, I think that it would have been one of those moments in your life
No,
where,
the funny thing is,
how can we do that, Dylan? Can we do that?
talk to Damon.
I want to do that.
Well, let's just call him. Give us his number.
Okay.
The funny thing is like
Text it.
when we first started podcasting, Mary and I had 3 goals, and my number 1 goal was somehow to find a way, before we even knew that Leftovers was coming on, to interview Damon Lindelof because of my Lost obsession. And when it finally happened, it totally blew my mind.
I'm curious what your other 2 goals.
No, that's a professional tease. We're gonna save that for another episode. So Dylan, what's the one thing that you would change?
I didn't want to discuss this when we got to it, but I had no choice. I felt like I needed to. So I've already kind of talked about this, so I don't need to say much more about it. But I wish there was more narrative objectives for the final season. Mm-hmm. I wish that we didn't spend so much time dealing with Kevin Garvey Sr.'s goal, because that was extremely uninteresting to me, and it was never the least bit engaging to me. We got a whole episode with it, and then we had the reason that Kevin was going back to that world was, quote unquote, to help his dad out in this situation, even though we knew that he was addicted to it and he wanted to go back to that world. As opposed to in the second season, he was going there to rid himself from the Patty infestation from it. That was so much more I have to do this than this, where he was more addicted to the world, right? So that was more of a I just like I said, I didn't get the page turning except for the machine that Nora was going to pass through. Mm-hmm. I just wish we had more of stories like that, which I just didn't feel like we got in the third season as much. It just would have made it more enthralling for me. And again, it's not to knock it, and I loved so much about it. I just would have liked to think every time this was done, I was like, I can't believe this is happening, where this is all going. This is so exciting. And I wasn't as excited in the final season than I was in the second season.
My one question to you, Dylan, though, and your opinion is 100% valid, but my one question would be...
Thank you for validating my opinion.
would be, is it Kevin being addicted to the hotel verse or international assassin verse, or is it him trying to escape his responsibilities with Nora? Because if that's the case, and I think the show explicitly states that it's him trying to escape Nora. At the end, I mean, at least within the context of the most powerful man in the universe, in the world. Do you see a difference there? And if you highlight the difference, would that make that a different opinion of yours?
I guess I just felt like, for my interpretation of it, is after he and Nora had split up, from his own cowardice, as he admits later, he didn't have any goals, and his father showed up and was like, "Hey, I got this goal. It's a life-changing goal, right?" And we saw him earlier in the season he was putting the bag on his head and, kind of asphyxiating himself and dealing with that going on. So he was like, "Hey, this lets me go back to that world and lets me forget about the situation with Nora. I'm going to do it." Mm-hmm. Even though I don't think it for 1 second, like he admits in The Most Powerful Man in the World, that he doesn't think that he was going to get the song that was going to save the world.
Right.
Did that answer your question at all, or did I not answer your question?
No, it answers it. Gina, what do you got?
All right. And this kind of got brought up a little earlier, how the last episodes leading up to the finale were kind of giving us our goodbyes to certain characters. But 2 characters that I really felt were missing and should have been a part of it were Tom and Jill. And I should have done research on this. Maybe they're on a different film thing. Maybe their contract didn't get renewed. It probably was something very Hollywood where they weren't signed on for this season. But they were really strong driving forces for a lot of the decisions that Kevin was making, later on that Lori was making. And then to have us at the end and they're not even visibly there at all, I thought was something that I would have liked to have included. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like I said my goodbyes to those characters. And I'm a little confused why these really central driving forces in the main character's life weren't even barely mentioned. So that's something I would have changed. I would have had them at least show up in the last episode in someone's flashback or something.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the flashback for the Carver twins. We could have had Jill and Tom.
Well, yeah, I miss them too. So
I had the ping pong balls.
I took it that, I felt like they were removed from a lot of the grief. I mean, Tommy definitely not in season 2. He went through a hell of a lot of stuff. But I don't know. I just feel like because they were so young when everything happened, that the younger generation of those kids, remember how in the first season, the kids were just kind of like hanging out in the woods, like chilling out. I just kind of felt like this is the world that they grew up in. And we needed closure on the people that had a lot of pain. I agree. There was probably a real Hollywood reason to it. I'm glad at least we get to hear their voices.
Practical.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think about I'm sure it was very practical, but if you could try to make an excuse for it, think of like the kids that were like 4 years old when 9/11 happened. You know, I was a freshman in college, so that is burned into my psyche. I remember how that felt. But you know, you explain that to someone who was like 4 at the time, and they're like, okay, buildings fell, like people died. It was a big deal, but whatever. But for me, I remember trying to call my parents and having the cell phone networks be totally busy, and you kept on getting the notification. You couldn't get in touch with anybody, and people you didn't know. I was in New Hampshire, and I wasn't sure if planes were going to come to New Hampshire, and like it was terrifying. But someone who was much younger doesn't have that same thing. So because of that, I think they were more easily able to close out on the departure.
Yeah.
But
I was just saying,
I always felt, and maybe this was just my connection to Jill, I always felt like she was the one who got, pardon my French, but the shittiest end of the stick.
Yep.
She was an innocent kid whose family is just in absolute disarray and has gone through multiple traumatic experiences. And so I think I just really, I felt really bad for Jill. She wasn't a driving force of anything, but she got all the worst parts of it.
Oh, that's a very good point.
You know, lost her mother, and her dad was losing his mind. Her grandpa was in a mental institution. Like I always felt for her and felt sympathy for her and for Tom to some extent. And so I really kind of wanted like a happy ending for her. I wanted to connect with her in the end. So that's kind of how I took her journey.
Makes perfect sense. For myself, the one thing that I would change, ironically, would be to lessen the amount of episodes in season 1 and add more episodes to season 3.
Interesting.
why couldn't you just say add episodes to season 3? Why do you have to take away from season 1?
Because I feel like there was like the 2 episodes that stand out to me that I think could either be condensed or removed altogether would be Penguin 1, Us 0, and also BJ and the AC. And if you could remove those 2 or put their narratives within the context of other episodes, which I think would be possible, you would have a more clean and concise first season, and what you'd get to Mimi Leader's influence a little bit more quickly. And that's another thing I want to say here. Honorable mention goes to Mimi Leader's presence.
For your top 5?
From
the director of
Deep Impact.
Deep
yes.
Impact, yeah, it's the best asteroid movie ever.
That's a 3-year-long debate going on between Dylan and I.
It's never been a debate. For me,
No, it's always
never been a debate. For
Listen,
me.
I've already said it. Fact, not opinion. Armageddon's better. That's how it goes. But if you were able to condense season 1 and get rid of that, like the early awkward episodes of The Leftovers, where I don't think it knew what it wanted to be quite yet, then it would be a lot better in terms of a through line. But then also getting to season 3, if you added more episodes to season 3, you'd be able to get maybe more closure on Jill and Tommy, and maybe you'd be able to get more closure on John and Michael, and maybe even Erica. Yeah, and even Erica.
Where was she? We missed her.
Right. So if you had those more episodes,
and it would have made me less bummed about the Kevin Garvey Sr. episode.
Right, because you have more real estate. You have more real estate to invest in.
That was the biggest problem for me. Is I was like, we only have 5 episodes left at this point. I was like, this is not what I wanted to see with this.
There was a time crunch.
Yeah, right. And I would say that the low point of season 3 was that episode.
Yeah.
But if you, again, the point I think of season 3 was a farewell to each particular character, And if you had any investment whatsoever in the characters, you kind of had to know what happened to Kevin Sr., why he was the way he was, where he was,
Yep.
why he was there. So taking away episodes from season 1 and then adding episodes to season 3, I think would make a more cohesive, more tight, and more structurally pleasing and character pleasing drama. And that is that. So anything else, guys, that you want to add?
Yeah, I want to talk about the Emmys.
Oh, okay.
You've been championing the Emmy thing on Twitter.
Yes,
I tried to
hashtag
do what
leftovers for Emmys. Yes,
trying to do what I could on that.
I appreciate
But
that.
here's the leftovers. I will say, what do I know? Because the Emmys they're completely unpredictable because they're stupid. That's my opinion. But I will say that I do not think that they're going to get snubbed this time. I think they'll get several nominations. I think if there's not a guaranteed win, there's no guarantees with the Emmys because they're stupid. But if I want to say the best chances of if it's going to be one win, it's going to be Carrie Coon. It's going to be Carrie Coon.
Yeah.
I think that if it gets a couple nominations here, there, the best chance it's going to happen if it puts all its eggs into a basket, it's going to have to be Carrie Coon if they want to really campaign a win out of it, and I think they could. I really, truly think they could, especially the way the critical community is looking at the show now. I think it dropped the ball on the second season with this show, and that's another thing that just makes me think the Emmys are a joke. But I think that if they want to fix themselves in my mind a little bit, I'm sure there will be nominations, and I think the Carrie Coon. It depends. I don't know what the field is against it. But I think the tide is rising for Carrie Coon very, very quickly in the past year or so.
And she's on that Fargo show. I admittly don't watch it, but I've heard about it, and I've heard she's really good on it.
You can just call it Fargo.
You know that Fargo show?
Yes, Grandma. The Fargo show. Yes, Grandma.
Fargo.
Give her medicine. She's getting restless.
I think the thing that kind of makes Carrie Coon suffer a little bit in terms of the Academy would be that she is on Fargo, and the votes that she would get would be split between the leftovers and Fargo.
I think that her publicist is going to be campaigning it for one and not the other. I don't think that it will be split. It's just I think splits will happen if two people from the same show are nominated in the same category.
That's a possibility.
Really.
Although if I would put all my eggs in one basket, I would say it'd be writing for the finale.
Or the Carver twins.
Yeah, or the Carver twins.
Obviously.
Best supporting twins.
The Carver twins will split votes. I think that's probably why they're not going to be.
Or I would say writing for the most powerful man in the world. I think writing for those two episodes have the best chance. And if I were to put my other egg, the one leg egg I have left, would be in Justin Theroux's basket. I think he is going to get recognized, and I say that because don't underestimate the power of one Jimmy Kimmel and his efforts to nationalize the leftovers, but in particular Justin Theroux in his Emmy bid. I think that's important. And once he got that national recognition and the show kind of entered into that zeitgeisty kind of realm for critics and people, I think it's gonna happen. So
yeah,
that's my thought on that.
A really fun surprise would be an Amy Brenneman nomination.
Oh,
because I just think she has such great scenes, and she was on the Judging Amy. No, it was just Judging Amy, which I think was
that Judging Amy show.
That Judging Amy show, which I think was in the Emmy mix back in the day.
Yep.
So I think that'd be kind of, they would do something like that and bring someone back who maybe wasn't really in the mix. And a lot of her scenes, I just kept thinking, well, if they were up for an Emmy, this is the episode she would send in. And especially on the boat when she's talking to Jill and Tom, and just the fine line of she's about to cry, but then she has to get a big grin because she doesn't want them to hear it. Like the subtlety of that whole scene, I did think if you're going to send something in, that's what you want to send in.
Sure.
So that would be a fun one to see.
Would nominated. You call it that 70s show?
I would call it the 70s show.
Got it.
Oh boy! All right, well, guys, are you ready?
Leaving on a whimper, guys. We're leaving on a whimper.
Bum, bum, ba-da. Are you guys ready to close out this wonderful final
MegaCast?
MegaCast.
Can I plug some stuff before we wrap things up?
Well, I was going to give you the opportunity as we were closing the show out, but please. Oh, I was going to play some music underneath your shameless plugs. So if you'd like to play music underneath the shameless plug, I'm more than happy to do that. If you would like to just do it now, do it now.
Blake, play the music. Cue
All
the
right,
music.
here we go.
Cue the music.
Do I talk? Do I plug over this?
No. Hold on. You got to wait. You got to wait for the music to go down.
Blake's going to let you know. He usually points to me, but he'll tell you.
All right, go ahead, my love. Start the
Wait,
beginning
what
of this.
am I doing?
What-
Thank
you
you all
normally do.
so much for joining us on the MegaCast. This has been amazing. Of course, we're going to be really excited to just keep the conversation going. You keep waving at me. I don't know what you want me to do. I thought Dylan was going to talk.
Now
I wasn't
you
wrap
ready.
up. Is
This
she
is when you
supposed to
bring in
stop her
Gina and
speech?
Dylan.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to.
Dylan, shameless plugs, go.
All right. Well, first of all my listeners, obviously, you guys are going to want to funnel over. I mean, our listeners on the Guilty Remnant. You're going to want to check out their interview with Damon Lindelof that's going to be coming out. Obviously, that's something to check out, and they'll tell you where to follow that. For me, anybody that's been listening to this, I do want to not lose our listeners. This is me saying my final goodbyes to my listeners, so I want to say it. Go over to the watchandtalk.com. It's the movie review podcast I do. Blake's been on a bunch of episodes, and we have a couple planned ahead here pretty soon. So I'm sure that you'll be on there. I think with Spider-Man, you might be coming on, and Dunkirk.
Yes.
So check those. We do non-spoiler reviews of these movies, and then a spoiler section at the end. So if you haven't seen it, you can listen to it. Also, I've been doing some writing for Hollywood Reporter. So if you go to thehollywoodreporter.com and you search my name, Dylan Schuck, that's SCHUCKSTR, and you find a couple of my articles that I've written about a couple different things. So yeah, check it out. And then on thewatchtalk.com, if you click the podcast tab at the top, it links all the different show podcasts I do. I have like 7 of them. So if you watch other shows, go check that out. That's my shameless plug. Follow me on Twitter at Shuckster, SCHUCKSTR.
With all those podcasts, Dylan, I was going to say, you're a shower, not a grower, man. You are definitely a shower.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Gina, where can we find you?
Oh, I have nothing.
She doesn't want to be
plug.
followed.
I just go on the podcast when Dylan lets me and have a really good time. So
All right.
We have an upcoming podcast that Gina's going to be doing with John Booker and I for the upcoming show called The Deuce.
Oh, good.
yeah.
With James Franco. It's going to be on HBO here in September. So stay on the lookout for that. Gina will get a Twitter by then. And
I said I'll get a Twitter once we start that.
that's her September resolution.
Well, as for us, we will be having Damon Lindelof on the show very soon. In the meantime, if you want to follow everything that Mary and Blake do, you can see us and everything we'd have at maryandblake.co. As for now, my darling,
We're still here.